Spiritual Connections with Jen and John. Welcome. We hope you enjoy our conversations on all things spiritual and how we as spiritual beings can survive on this planet Earth in our human form. The topics we choose are in the moment. May you find them to be of interest to you along your own spiritual pathway. Episode 2. Hi, good day, John. And how are you doing today?
Excellent, thanks, Jenny. Yeah, we're just trying to work out what we're going to talk about today. But perhaps if I start just by introducing myself. My name's John Shearer, and I'm down under in Australia, which is to you. And I'm a mindfulness master and hypnotherapist and lived experience recovery coach is what I like to call myself these days, because I do spend a bit of time helping people, whether they're recovering from mental disorder or addiction disorder. And how about you, Jenny? Introduce yourself.
I'm a spiritual coach and mentor. I'm an energy healing facilitator, and I'm an author. And along with that, I have a massive lived experience, and also I'm a mental health advocate. So we are very much in the same field. I also have I've also self-published my own book and my own set of positive opposite sides of the world.
Yeah, well, a word that popped out to me then was energy. And really, when you think about it, we are energy at our core. That's what we are. Everything is energy. And I know for me, I was in the mental health system for 15 years. From the time I died in a truck crash in 1982 up to 1997, I was, when I say stuck in the mental health system as well. And I call them my dark years now, because I was blind to the truth. I didn't really understand what was happening to me. And I was on a smorgasbord of meds. I was suicidal. But I'm very thankful for those years now. Because in 1997, and at that time I was told that I could never be cured. Mental health professionals told me this, that I couldn't be cured, that I'd have to be on medication the rest of my life, and that I would probably never work again. And I believed them. Well, they're the professionals. Why wouldn't I? I didn't know any different. And then I got what I call my miracle, and an old friend he was passing through town, and in his words he said he had a spiritual prompt to come and knock on my door and share his story. And that story led to my spiritual awakening. And I formed a relationship, or started to. Wasn't like an overnight miracle, but I haven't had depression since. I haven't been on meds. 24 years now, med free, and it's my journey that gives me my passion to help others wake up. I call it, just like I did. I had my spiritual awakening and started a relationship with my source energy. And when we do that, we're never alone, for one thing. And when we get into the practice, mindful practice, of pausing with source, with that nothingness where everything is, it's life-changing. And it's a very simple thing. Yeah, so energy, we are energy. And once we form that relationship with source, because in those moments of silence and silencing our mind and having quiet time, connecting with that nothingness where everything is, everything that was ever created came out of that void, if you like. And it turns our intuition on. And, oh, wow, I just wish I could. Wouldn't it be good if we had a mindful world, Jenny? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely beautiful it would. It would. And that mindful world would start. The second that a child is born in the communities. Wouldn't that be absolutely wonderful? To have communities just full of love and balls of energy, because children are just these beautiful light beings, just full, they're just so alive. So it's really important that in those beginning stages that they're shown and given the experiences to be able to evolve even more, rather than being dumbed down, I'd call it, by society's rules and regulations, which, yes, some are good, like look both ways before you cross the road, that kind of thing. Obviously, that's important because you want to keep yourself safe. But there's lots of things they could do. Teaching mindfulness, teaching yoga, teaching. There are a couple of really good schools. There's a forest school, and there is a beautiful little curiosities nursery, and basically they're just based in the outside world. Their fun, love and laughter and play and learning just comes from being in the environment and just being in and around people and just sharing and caring. I think I'm not sure, some countries don't even go to school till 8, 9 or whatever, 10, because the academic learning, to me that's a separate thing. Your academic learning is something, if you've got a leaning towards something, then that's where you need to be led. So these beautiful children that are being born now, if they're artistic, creative, sporty, musical, whatever they are, that's what we should be feeding. We should be helping them with that, rather than just trying to ram 2 + 2 down their throats. So I'm a great believer in to be free.
Absolutely, Jenny. Years ago, 12 years ago now, I started lobbying politicians to get mindfulness in their schools, and it is starting to happen now. So it's great, because I'm not the only one. Such a simple and an important skill to have is to live in the present moment. And we need to teach our children how to think, not so much what to think, which has traditionally been education, taught what to think. Yeah. But if we teach them how to think, how to turn on their creativity, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And then they can start tapping into, whatever their creatives tapping into, whatever their creative juices lead them into. It's definitely the way to go, and it is going that way. So we're not going to beat up the system, even though I love doing that, whether it's the education system or the justice system. That's for sure. The world is waking up. That's the good news.
It
we
is.
don't hear about it on the news, of course, but it's happening. That's for sure. So, and it can't happen quick enough, as far as I'm concerned. It's so basically important. And a lot of people might say, it's the parents' job. Well, the parents don't have these skills. You know, even though they're very ancient skills, they go right back to the start of all recorded history, really, to the time of Buddha, even mindfulness, to the time of Buddha, even mindfulness, but it hasn't been handed down, it hasn't been taught, so parents don't necessarily have it. So that's why it's really important, and it is the responsibility of the education system to introduce this. But like I said, it's starting to happen, and it's great. There's over here in Australia, there's a mob called Smiling Mind, and they've put together apps and that, and it's been as part of the curriculum almost now, but video, you know, and it's just not the same thing because the kids sit there and they're still thinking about skateboarding after school. You know, their minds are distracted. They're not in the present moment. They're not here now. But when the teacher actually gets the kids in a circle and has a little, 5-minute meditation to start the day, then the teacher gets their attention and they get it and they start to learn the skill properly. That's the ideal. And you know, we'll keep working towards that. That's
awesome. And it is, you're quite right, it's about engaging. Not really engaging when they're just looking at a video, are they? If they're actually with a teacher and sat there, then they're engaging with each other, and it's just complete quiet, and you know, they can be really good that that's happening over there. Really, really good. And well done you for taking it into to your politicians and everything as well, to push mindfulness through the system there.
It's happening in the UK as well, because I remember it might have been probably 3 years ago, and the recommendation went through your UK Parliament to introduce mindfulness into 320 UK primary schools. But then I don't know whether you might have had a change of government or something happened, but whether it is actually happening, I know it was announced because I get all the latest information from the Mindfulness Initiative. You can Google that. It's in the UK, the Mindfulness Initiative, and that was someone, and they invited all politicians, all parliamentarians into a meditation circle, and it grew in popularity, and eventually they you know, because they did a lot of studies into mindfulness, and there's been a lot of studies done as well in a really rough neighbourhood in Los Angeles over in USA, and they introduced mindfulness right throughout the school, and all the teachers had training and whatever else, and then they compared figures from the year before without mindfulness, and the figures were astounding. You know, truancy down by 45%.
Wow.
Trips to the principal's office down by 60%. Bullying down by 80%. I remember that one because that's really impressive.
Yeah.
You know. So that's just some of the benefits. So, you know, we weren't sure what we were going to talk about tonight. Mindfulness and education turned out to be the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look up that site, John. And while you were talking there, you mentioned 320 primary schools in the UK. That's not a lot. Which is probably why, which is probably why I've not heard of it. That's not a lot at all. They never seem to do. I don't know why they don't roll these things out across the board.
Sure.
So
anyhow, the wheels are for the system to change. And of course, you know, change is difficult for a lot of people, especially people with addictions and mental disorder, if you like. Because we are naturally resistant to change. It's not an easy thing, but it's quite doable. and we need to do it as well. We need to be changing all the time, evolving all the time, growing all the time. Yeah, keep the same habits and keep doing the same things day in, day out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my tagline for my business is changing perceptions. So the work that I do with people is exactly that, trying to get them to see that they can look at, to recognise, acknowledge and recognise whatever it is that's going on in their life. They can actually look at it from a different viewpoint, change the mindset, and clients are just amazed at, they never knew, that they could actually do that and be different and change things in their life. And I think a lot of that comes from their, what I put in inverted commas, fears, which are literally just false evidence appearing real. And often it's just the fear of that fear that's actually the block. So with the work that I do, I can get deeper and we can work through where people's issues are. And that then in turn helps in helping them. That then helps the whole planet. And it also helps as they heal, others heal, and so do our ancestors. And I know we've spoken about ancestors before. And since this weekend, I've felt the ancestors, like globally, very, very close, sending in, supporting with lots of loving, healing energies. So they're to go back into our source, go back to source and connect with source. We have everything we need.
Exactly. I love that because, well, that's what changed my life, was a change in perspective. And perspective simply was a newfound spiritual perspective. And quite simply, I had perspective of light and dark, or fear and love, and and we always have a choice. We're going to live in fear or out of love. Are we going to continue to live in the dark, or we're going to step into the light? It's not quite. Perspective is a wonderful thing. Yeah. A little while ago, I had a lady ring me and she said, John, this was 8:30 in the morning, and she said, John, she'd been to a funeral the week before, and a friend gave her my name, and I built up courage to call you, she said. I don't want to be alive anymore. Whoa. Go on, tell me a little bit more. So she got talking, and she said she'd had it with the mental health system. She didn't want to go near them anymore. All they wanted to do was medicate her, and she wasn't getting anywhere, and she just had enough, and she was quite suicidal. Well, I said, come into town. She was about 40 k's out of town, so I asked, can she get into town? She could. So she come and had a session with me, and I was able to give her spiritual perspective. And even though she wasn't Aboriginal herself, she lived with an Aboriginal partner and she had Aboriginal friends. And I was able to teach her a little bit about Aboriginal culture around where I live, or in the northern Australia, there's a word, the Diri. But they're different names because there's different dialects around Australia. But what it means is deep listening. And when people suffer from trauma, and we've all had trauma, and she especially had trauma, then Aboriginal people used to go to the spiritual guru of the tribe, and they were taught Dharma, or the Diri, which was deep listening. They're sent into the bush, into nature, to practice deep listening, listening beyond their thoughts. And we know ourselves when we go into nature or into the bush and quieten our minds and just listen. Sure, we're listening with our ears, but we're practicing deep listening, but we're practicing deep listening with our soul. And when we do that, when we're quiet enough, nature speaks to us and we get the answers we're looking for. It's amazing. Yeah. So perspective, yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Thing is one of my core things that I use, obviously, in the work that I do. And it's so important because, like you say, many people come to us who are using the broken mental health system because they have nowhere else to turn. Like you say, they're just being prescribed something to dumb them down again, instead of helping them to find who they are. Again, it's that spiritual aspect that's missed in the mental health service. They don't understand it. Mental health service, they don't understand it. And the Didiri, I know it as the Didiri. I love that because Miriam Rose is the lady who, yeah, absolutely. So yes, I've listened to Miriam Rose a few times, and I love how she speaks and how she explains things. Perhaps, would you be able to tell perhaps the audience how we could contact Miriam Rose at all, or how we, can find out where she is and look up some of her work?
Well, probably Google is the way to go. Miriam Rose, just how it's, yes, she calls the dairy, she sees it as a gift to the Australian people.
Yeah.
And I see it, sure, to the Australian people, but the world.
Yeah.
The gift of presence and deep listening and connecting. It's just such a simple and powerful thing. Yeah. So,
and do we have a spelling for Didiri?
There's Dadiri.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Thank you, John. Hey,
yeah,
well.
It's an ancient practice.
Hey,
yeah,
well.
It's an ancient practice, and we find the same thing in other cultures. Nearly every culture in the world, really, if you really want to get down to it. Sometimes it's not called mindfulness, but I think that's the word that's really taken hold these days. I know 12 years ago when I was coach and started handing out business cards, and people would say, "What's mindfulness?" That was 12 years ago, but I can't remember the last time I was asked that question, because it's very much mainstream now. Everybody's heard of it, at least. Whether they actually realise what it is or not, because a lot of people think mindfulness is meditation, which it is not. That's why it's mindfulness and meditation. Meditation is something that we make time to do, whereas mindfulness becomes part of our life, and we practice mindfulness and we practice mindfulness and presence throughout our day, every day, becomes part of us, and that's the difference. Other people think that it's yoga, and once again, yoga is a beautiful thing, and a part of yoga is meditation. But once again, it's something you make time to do, and we should. It's fantastic. I'm not knocking it at all, but there is that difference. Yeah, and I know I've heard from teachers, because I've been around the high schools and wherever else doing group talks and different things, and see mindfulness as some sort of threat. I'm talking about the private, Catholic schools and that, which is silly. Of course it's not a threat. Mindfulness is good no matter what religion it is. Mindfulness should be part of it. It can be a prayer method, when we quieten our minds and connect, whether you're connecting with Source, with the universe, or with God, all the same thing.
It is, and it keeps us, being in the now keeps you focused. You're able to focus more on what it is that you're putting your attention to in that moment. You're able to focus more on what it is that you're putting your attention to in that moment. That's beautiful. Well, that's beautiful, John. Thank you. Thank you so much. These
Thank you,
conversations with
Jenny.
Jen.
Yeah, we have these little chats and then share via whatever. And I'll just finish by saying what I always say: be mindful, pause, and connect.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Bye for
Righto.
now.
Bye.